Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of T-Dog RC. And today what we're going to be looking at is something for people who are new to the hobby. So I'm going to be doing a 3-part series I've decided to record. Part 1 being today's one, which is about choosing your first RC plane. Part 2 is going to be assembling your first RC plane. And then part 3, when we're out of lockdown and I can get down the flying field, is going to be flying your first RC plane. So I'm going to be doing different videos as well in between, and I know some subscribers to this channel are not beginners, but I thought that I've got a fair bit of experience when it comes to RC planes. I've been basically flying them since 1995, I think it was. Did have a long break in between, but yeah, I've got a reasonable amount of experience, and I thought it would be a good thing to do, to put something back, I suppose, to the YouTube community. And there's perhaps lots of people out there during lockdown who've been thinking about trying something new and maybe getting into a new hobby, and there isn't many better hobbies out there, in my opinion, than flying RC planes. So hopefully this will help people make that decision and take the leap and try it out. So, without further ado, let's get stuck in. Okay, so today we are going to be having a look at the ideal plane for your first RC plane, the ideal sort of model that you should be going for, and also talking a little bit about the sort of things that you need to be thinking about before you get into flying. So let's start off by some of the things you want to be thinking about. So the first thing obviously is where you're going to fly the plane. Now different rules in different countries, but it might be a very good idea to have a look at to see if there is a local flying club that you can join, because when you join a flying club, there'll be plenty of people in that club that will be willing to help you out, and of course there will hopefully be someone there who will fly the plane for you for the first time and also give you some instruction and teach you how to fly. However, if that's not an option to you, then you can find a suitable field to fly a plane in. Certainly don't fly them in a built-up area or near people or anything like that, so you need to go really in a field that's kind of in the middle of nowhere. And you also need to consider about insurance. You've got to be careful that you don't do any damage to any property or hit any people or anything like that. So the other thing I'd recommend having a look into is joining the model organisation in your country. Now here in the UK there is one called the BMFA, which you become a member of, and as part of that membership you can then take a little exam, and that makes you CAA certified, so you can fly things over 250 grams, you get the registration and all that sort of stuff, and it also provides you with a bit of insurance as well, in case anything happens. And of course again there's a whole community there of advice for you. So in summary, if you can, join a club. If you can't, then and you've got no one to show you how to fly a plane, then hopefully these videos will help you get started in any case. So then let's have a look at the different types of models. You might have already started having a look at the various websites like Hobbyking and Banggood, and then obviously it's good to support the smaller sites as well. There's lots in the UK that are really good, and again I'll list some of those, like WheelSpin models, Sussex Model Centre. I can remember Sussex Model Centre from when I was younger flying. They've been around for years, so these are all good places to have a look at buying the kit that you need. When you come to look at a plane, there's different versions that you can get that you'll probably see. So the first one is a kit. And as a beginner, that's something you want to avoid, because basically what a kit means is that you're going to have to build the plane yourself. So if it's a foam plane, then really you're not sort of building it in the true sense. It's more you're assembling it, so you've got to put the the wings together and attach the tail and that sort of stuff. But you'll also have to connect up all the radio gear, install all that sort of stuff, because with it being a kit, it'll just be the components. If it's a balsa plane, then it will be really quite involved, because it'll mean you have to assemble the plane from scratch, which is something that you want to avoid really as a beginner. When I first started flying, you had no choice but to go for something like that. But fortunately nowadays, there's all sorts of pre-made planes ready to go. So that's a kit. Then next you would have something called an ARF, which is almost ready to fly. That's not so bad. What that means is the planes are pretty much assembled and there's some basic assembly to do, but you're most likely still going to have to install your own motor, your own radio equipment, servos and things like that, and speed controllers, and connect all that together. So again, something to avoid if you're a beginner. Then you would get a PMP, which is plug and play basically, which is what this model is that I've got here that I'm going to be unboxing today. That means that it's pretty much ready to go. So it's got all the radio gear installed, it's got the motor installed, the servos are all installed, the speed controllers installed. There's only two things really that you need to get it going, and that is a battery and a receiver. So that's all you need. All the servo leads and everything will be ready for you to plug into the receiver and the speed controller, and then you just hook it up to an appropriate LiPo battery, and then set your radio up and you should be good to go. So PMP is really good for beginners. And then finally, some manufacturers such as E-Flight will do something called a BNF, which is bind and fly, and that actually goes a step further, and it has the receiver built into the model. So all you have to do is supply a battery and bind the receiver to your transmitter and you're ready to go. The downside to that is with E-Flight, for example, the receivers are all spectrum based, so you need to have a spectrum based radio. You can now go with some of these multi-protocol radios, but that's perhaps a little bit advanced for a beginner. So if you're going to go down the bind and fly route, you're really kind of committed to spectrum. So I would recommend looking at PMP. Okay, so now moving on to the fun part, and that's deciding what plane to get as your first plane. The sort of thing that I would recommend is similar to this that I have here. So this is a Bixler from Hobbyking. Doesn't have to be a Bixler, but this sort of model is perfect for your first plane. So you can get these on all the big websites. There's versions of this on Banggood. Obviously there's the Bixler on Hobbyking, but then there's other models very similar to this that you can pick up. And again, I'll put links to this in the description. So the description is going to be pretty big on this one, because it's going to have a lot of links in it. And basically, this is a powered plane, so it has a motor. The motor's at the back, so it's nice and safe being at the back. It's going to be harder to get your fingers caught in it with it not being at the front. But you can see from this picture, hopefully, that it kind of looks a little bit like a glider. So it's got a pretty long wingspan, and in this instance, this is 1,550 millimeters, so it's 1.5 meters, so it's pretty big wingspan. Simple, what's called a T-tail construction, so it's just got a vertical stabilizer and a horizontal stabilizer here, very common, and it's basically just an extremely docile and easy to fly plane. So whichever plane you go for your first model, make sure it looks like this. And as I said, you don't have to get a Bixler, although you really won't go wrong with a Bixler. There are lots of other models that look similar to this, and this is the kind of thing you're looking for. So it's a high wing, it's a decent wingspan, it's got the motor at the back raised fairly high, and nothing on the nose, and that's the sort of thing that you want to be looking for. And again, I'll put some links in the description, not just from Hobbyking but from some other sites as well. And this one, the reason why, this is the Bixler 3, but they also do a 1.1 and a 1.2, all absolutely fine. The nice thing with the Bixler 3 is this has got undercarriage, so you can, it's a little easy to take off because you can take off from the ground. You don't have to throw it, because when you have to hand launch something, you're obviously committed. As soon as it leaves your hand, the thing is flying, so you've got to fly it, which is a bit tricky if you've never flown something before. When we get to the fly-in part of these videos, so part 3, I will show you how to hand launch one of these. They're really easy to hand launch. Hand launch is very tricky normally, but these things are so docile, it's actually really easy and quite satisfying as well. But if you can get one with undercarriage, it will make it easier, but not essential with these. And the reason why these are so good is they'll fly at very low speeds, very stable, which of course is ideal for a beginner, and they're very docile. So when you sort of move the sticks around, they're very graceful the way that they move. They're not like a stunt aircraft and it's going to snap into a really fast roll or anything like that. So very easy to control, nice and slow and docile, like I said. And because it's so stable at low speeds, it's also not very, but relatively easy to land. Landing something that obviously you're going to have to practice, and hopefully, you know, if you do have a few bumps on the first few landings, you won't do too much damage. But once you get the hang of it, these things will come into land so slowly, and they won't really stall, which is when a stall is when the plane sort of falls out of the sky because it's run out of lift because it's going too slow. These will literally go at walking pace before that happens, so they're nice and easy to land. So that's the sort of plane I would recommend. So the rest of this video, let's get this box open, look at the sort of thing that you're going to expect to see when you get yours. So this is, I've not opened this, so we'll just cut it open. Okay, so first thing we've got in this, everything's nicely packed, and everything's in these plastic bags and it's taped down, so you're gonna have to uncut these, and obviously be careful when you do this that you don't go and cut through the actual aircraft. So we've got a pair of wings, which is a good start. In this particular instance, this one clips together, which is really good, but we'll go into this sort of detail on video 2, which is going to be how to assemble one of these. But although it's quite a large wingspan, because the wings clip together, it's fairly easy to store because you can take them apart. Let me get one of these open. I won't open the other one just yet. Hopefully you'll be able to get into yours a little easier than I have. So first thing you'll notice is the stickers are already applied, so you don't even have to do that, or decals, sorry, should I say, not stickers. So the decals are already applied. In this instance, which is really nice, the servos are all pre-installed because it's a PMP model, so I haven't got to install the servos. These are the little motors that control the surfaces. But also in this case, and again go into more detail on all of this in the build video, but even the control linkages are already connected, ready to go. So that makes life a lot easier for you as well. Okay, so that's the wings. So as you can see, there is some assembly here, so it's not just, obviously it's just not a plane I can pull out of the box and fly. We've got a set of undercarriage here. This is the vertical stabilizer and rudder. Then we've got the horizontal stabilizer and elevator. And again, decals all applied. And again, another good thing you'll notice about this Bixler model and the other Bixler range is that it's a nice bright scheme on the top and a nice easy identifiable scheme on the bottom as well, which helps you see which way up the plane is, which again is great for beginners while you get used to it. And then finally we have the fuselage. Let's just take this out of the bag. So with this one, there is some assembly, like I said. I think I'll get into more of this in the build video, but I'm not sure. I think you do have to use a little bit of glue for this to connect the tail together. But there is a screw hole in there as well, so it may just be a screw assembly. But I think on this one you do need a little bit of glue. But basically you're going to glue the tail onto here, obviously, which just slots in there. The slots are already cut out, so you can't really go wrong and get it in the wrong place or get it upside down or anything like that, because you just put the surface into the appropriate slot. Yeah, there is a screw actually in this one, so you could probably get away with just screwing it, but I would recommend gluing it. And certainly this horizontal stabilizer, that's just going to glue in there, and that just goes in there like that. There's actually a little tab at the front of this just hooks in. So it's as simple as that, really. Motor's pre-installed, like I've said, so nice little copper coloured motor in there. And while we're talking about motors, important safety tip, you'll hear a lot of people say this, and it's very important, is when you've got the model together, and you've got it on your bench and you plug a battery in and you're on your bench, never ever have the propeller on the motor. Always take the propeller off, because these things aren't toys. They're a lot of people think they are, obviously, but if you get your fingers in one of these propellers, or the throttle's open on your radio and you connect the battery and the motor bursts into life for whatever reason, you've got the prop on, it's going to do a lot of damage. So you want to be very careful of that. Always take the prop off. Then if we look inside this one, so it's got this is the speed controller. This is already installed and connected to the motor, and then it's got a battery plug ready to go there. So that's all in there, and then this has just got the little hatch here, which has just got magnets to hold it on, and you've got a nice big bay there to put your battery and your radio gear in there. So again, we'll go through all this in the build video. So that's the fuselage. Then you're always going to get a bag of bits with pretty much every model. So in this one we've got a propeller, which they've included. We've got a tube, which will be for joining the wings, to add a little bit of strength to the wings. A few more control horns and linkages that you're going to have to attach. Some screws to attach the wings with. In this case, they're kind of connectors rather than screws, because it's like a quick release wing. A couple of servo extension leads. Some Velcro they've included. So this will be in fact, they've included a couple of bits of Velcro. There's a big one there to fasten your battery in. So, fasten the hook section to the plane, and then the fuzzy bit goes on your battery to stick it in. And same they've included a couple of squares as well, so you can connect fasten your receiver into the plane with that. And there's also a little spinner here and prop adapter for the motor, which just slips on the end there. So the last thing in the box is there's a couple of covers for the wheels. These are more for decorative reasons than anything else. Obviously, it will make it a little bit more streamlined. But with fairly small wheels like this, these are going to possibly be a problem if you're taking off in long grass. So you might be better off actually leaving these wheel covers off, just to keep things simple. So that's the sort of thing you're going to expect in the box. Let's just move this out of the way. So you've got fuselage, horizontal stabilizer, vertical stabilizer, a pair of wings, and a bag of accessories. And if you have undercarriage, then some undercarriage. So that's what you're going to have in the box. So that's all good, very exciting. So then just to talk about the other bits that you're going to need to get flying. So as I've mentioned at the start of the video, you're going to need a battery, and it should tell you on the instructions what sort of battery you need. And on the subject of instructions, with Hobbyking models, and I think other models that you'll see, there's no instructions in the box. It'd be nice to see on a beginner's aircraft like this for them to include some instructions, because that would be quite handy. But the reason they don't include them is because you can just go onto Hobbyking's website or the vendor's website and click a link and download them. So you can even download them as a PDF on your phone, or obviously you can download it and print it out. So that's something else you want to do before you get started building them, and have a read through the instructions from start to finish before you actually start doing anything, because you might do something slightly out of sequence, like you might glue the horizontal stabilizer in, the vertical stabilizer in, for example. You might get excited and glue this in, and then realise as you go through the instructions you should have put the horizontal stabiliser in before you glued the vertical stabiliser in. Something like that. It's an easy mistake to make, and I'm sure most of us have done it at some point. So going back to the battery, you've checked out what battery you need. It's always going to be a LiPo battery. Something like this, it's probably going to use one of these, which is a 3S 2200 milliamp battery. These are one of the most common battery sizes that you can get. They're about between sort of 15 and 20 pounds to buy, depending on what sort you go for. And a battery like this in a model like this should get you a flight time of around about 8 minutes, 10 minutes if you're conservative with throttle. The nice thing about these planes is that because they are kind of like a glider, is you can take off, you can fly around, and then you can pull the throttle right back and stop the motor and basically just glide around for quite a while. So you can get a lot of flight time out of one battery. Obviously, you're probably going to want at least 2 batteries, and probably I would recommend 3 batteries if you're going to go down the field and have a fly. I'm not going to get into all the details about the batteries at the moment. The only thing I will say is with a battery, with the LiPo batteries, you want to store them safely. So something like, you can buy these. These are readily available. So this is a LiPo storage bag that you can pop your battery in when you're not using it, and it will keep it safe. These batteries are relatively volatile, but only if you go and hit them and puncture them or damage them physically or some way. So it's not just going to explode sat on your desk, so don't worry about that. But certainly if it's damaged or something like that, then it could be a problem. And also when you charge them, you should never charge these unattended, and whilst you're charging them, always put them inside a bag and just poke the cable out. So that's your battery. Then you are going to need a receiver. So this is the bit that sits in the plane with the 2 antennas. This is going to pick up the signal from the transmitter, which I'll show you in a second, and this, all the servos plug into this, and the battery kind of plugs into this. Again, we'll get into this in more detail on the build video. Basically this is going to convert the inputs on your sticks into movements into the plane. You need to get the appropriate receiver for your transmitter, but the chances are whatever transmitter you get, it will probably come with a receiver as well. Just mention channels. So channels is how many different servos, if you like, for want of a better term. So this one I think is a 6-channel receiver, so that means I can have 6 outputs on this. That's throttle, elevator, rudder, aileron. That's 4. If I'd got flaps, that's 5, and if I'd got, say, retractable landing gear, that's 6. So that for this model, this needs a 4-channel. That's going to be plenty. Most of them are around about 6 channels, so that should be fine. And then finally, you need to have a think about what transmitter system you're going to go with. I've got a couple of examples here. So this one, this is what I started out with back when I started flying again a couple of years ago. And these are actually brilliant little radios, and they're super cheap. So I think this radio comes with this receiver. This one's a Turnigy branded one from Hobbyking, but it's actually Fly Sky is the manufacturer. These are readily available from most places. Again, I'll put some links in this description. But this whole set, I think, is around about £50. So it's really cheap, and it's actually a decent little radio. You can do quite a lot with it. Certainly for flying something like this, it's going to be more than enough for what you need. And you know, there's no point spending hundreds of pounds on a radio if you're not sure if you like it. So something like this is ideal. Or another option is to get a bit more advanced and go for something like this. This is a Radio Master. This is a little bit more advanced, a little bit harder to use. Radio Master have just brought out a cut down version of this, which will only bind to what's called D16 or D8 receivers made by Free Sky, or indeed Radio Master's own receivers, and it's more expensive, that one. I think it's about £100 as opposed to £50, but again, this is an absolutely superb radio, and this will actually last you a long time, because you can start on this and progress into some serious models all with this radio. So that is the end of part 1, and that's choosing your first RC plane for your first ever flight. I hope that this has been useful. If you've got any comments or any questions, stick them in the comments below the video, and I will do my best to get back to you. And of course, please like and subscribe. That really helps me build my channel. And if you do subscribe and click the bell button, and this is something that you're interested in, this 3-part series, then you're going to get notified when I bring out another video. So it's well worth clicking the bell, hitting the subscribe button. Help me out and I'll help you out. So good stuff. Stay safe, everyone. Happy flying if you can fly in your country, and I'll see you soon for the next one.